got a foosball table.
You got a foosball table?
For the kids, yeah.
Wow.
I am just good enough that I can still beat the crap out of them. And I got a little guy that I named Pele.
Yeah.
And he keeps scoring. And every time he scores, I tap him on the head and I say, Pele. and
Hey everybody, welcome to Curling Nation Season 4?
Yep.
Episode
Accurate.
6.
Dude, you're supposed to be the one taking notes.
Well, I didn't
me.
write it down, so I'm pretty sure we're on 6.
If we're wrong, you fix it in post.
Anyway, we got a good show. We got Wally and Steve.
Wally Henry
and Steve Brown in person, in the flesh. We go through some background stuff. It's a long episode, but we go through some background on them, and then we get into some good stories. It's a fun time.
So stick with us.
Yeah, you might have to listen to it in 2 parts, but
yeah. It's a good time.
Yeah.
And there's bacon.
And there's bacon and brats.
Joel is a table full of meat in front of us. 2 kinds of brats and some bacon. So if you hear us indulging during the show, we apologize, but it's quite delicious.
We also didn't do a show title.
Yeah, well, 2 old guys and the rest of us.
Sure.
There we go. 2 old guys and the rest of us.
Yeah, show title.
All right. First of all, Curling Nation is brought to you by Modus Financial. Visit moduscc.com for all your credit card processing and point of sale needs. Give Mason a call if you're a curling club. You need to take some credit cards for payments. Stop taking checks. Just do it all online. Mason can help you out. moduscc.com. Also, endgamecurling.com. Croy made some pretty good brooms. I got one. I like it. The most eco-friendly broom head change in the world. All you do is swap out the fabric. You keep the head. Keep the pad. It's a good broom.
Pretty good. He's got a new one. He's got a travel broom. He's got a grippy sleeve. What do you call the
grip sleeve?
The grip sleeve. There you go.
The grip sleeve.
There you go.
Visit endgamecurling.com and support a U.S. made broom.
No updates because
nothing
happened in
nothing
the holidays.
happened over the holidays.
Did you guys have a good Christmas?
It was fine.
I was here sick, so
okay, great.
Sucks.
Yeah.
Oh.
I played 3.5 ends in the Oakville Family Bonspiel.
Nice.
Again, just like last year.
How'd your ends go?
We scored every end that I played.
Is it like straight up scoring, or is it like?
Yes, it's straight up scoring, and it's straight up curling. Except you have to change, like the rules sort of change every end. Where, like the first end, you go out with whatever lineup you want, and then. After the first end's over, you got to read the little board, and it says, okay, the second end, the skip is the shortest person on the team.
There you go.
And it goes from shortest to tallest, and the next one...
you were the skip that end?
No, I wasn't. Actually, I was playing with Henry. It wasn't shortest. It was like... whatever. It changes every end. Like, one's most punctual. One was like the most argumentative, and but we also had an 8-person team.
Great, awesome.
And so we won our first game. There are 2 6-end games. We won our first game, and then I had to leave and come home while my wife was playing in the Spoons Championship.
Got it. Okay.
And because you get bonus points for winning spoons, you get bonus points for singing karaoke, things like that.
Whoa. All right.
And my team apparently won. They tied the second game and then won in a draw to the button contest, which my 12-year-old drew full 4-foot to win the draw.
Way to go, Martin.
So I don't know what that ended up getting the team, as far like if we placed in the playoffs or not. I don't know that answer, but my wife forgot one of my sets of car keys, and so friend of the show, Laura Walker, happens to be curling in Oakville this weekend.
Yeah.
And she was curling in Madison next weekend. She will be delivering my car keys back to me next
Knock
week.
on wood.
Ideally.
Laura, please don't forget Craig's car keys.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's great.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of Laura, that was the whole beer and orange juice episode.
Yes.
The breakfast beers.
Breakfast beers.
Okay.
I tried a beer and orange juice
Okay.
with another club member who is a listener of the show.
Sure.
Bernie.
Sure.
Hey, Bernie.
And
What kind of beer?
Pabst.
Pabst.
A good breakfast beer.
Pulp? No pulp orange juice?
No pulp.
Thank
No pulp.
God.
He chose no pulp. He had the
Good.
choice.
Are you a
Of the
pulp?
two.
Pulp orange
No.
juice
You're
or
pulp
no?
guy?
Not
Are
really.
you a
I
pulp
don't
guy?
know.
No.
No, me neither.
I'm not a savage.
No.
Pulp's disgusting.
And we had our choice of the 6 beers on tap at the Madison Curling Club, and we decided that Pabst was the way to go for that.
I would have gone Pabst. I think I would have gone Pabst or we have Busch Light.
Really?
Right?
We have that on tap?
I think so.
We do.
Yeah.
Or
don't
we
know
did
why.
at some point.
We have
Yeah,
some
we did.
sort of light.
Not sure
know
if
if
it's
we
still
do anymore,
not sure if
but-
it's still there, but we did at some
Or
point.
I mean, it's probably Pabst or Mick Golden. Like,
No.
but I would have gone. I would have gone with something like that.
Yeah, so we
I
went
think
with Pabst.
I like that.
And we thought that was the right choice. And it's okay.
Okay.
Like it's
It's
not.
What was the
describe
ratio?
Yeah, that was my question.
I think he
was
tried
the
to just
ratio?
go 50-50.
50-50. Okay.
It still sort of tastes like beer, and it sort of tastes like orange juice. It doesn't completely taste like either.
Okay.
It's a little bit like a screwdriver. It's a little
Sure.
bit like orange juice, and it's a little bit like a cocktail.
Sure. Yeah.
But it's not maybe the best of either.
I've had some club members approach me and say, "You've never heard of a beer mosa?" So apparently it's a thing. Apparently in the U.S. maybe it's called a beer mosa instead of just a beer and OJ.
Because we fancy.
In Canada, I don't know. I've not had one yet. Laura will be here this coming week.
Yeah.
Whatever for the Madtown Double Down. I will approach her and we will try. I would like to try and have a beer
I'll
and
have
OJ.
another.
Beer and OJ with Laura Walker.
It didn't repulse me by any means.
Great.
I'm not
Perfect.
sure it's something that I'm going to partake in very often.
Regularly, but sure.
Yeah.
All right. I love it.
So there you go.
Way to do some field work for us.
You bet.
Appreciate that.
You bet.
All right, let's get to the interview. All right, we got a great show today, everybody. We have a couple of old guys, maybe some legends in the room. We're gonna put some questions on a tee and just let them tell some stories. Hopefully, this should be a good show. Steve Brown and Wally Henry are joining us. How long have you guys known each other? And then how long did you curl together?
Well, I asked Wally before as he walked in and confirmed how many years. And now I know why I had any success at all, because he joined me in '86 and we went to the Worlds and won a bronze medal. And the last year he played with me was in '91. We won a bronze medal. So he got me there to the Worlds in the beginning.
Okay.
And the ended, and he knew I was washed up, so he left me.
We actually knew each other for quite a few years before that. We used to play against each other in the championship series at club level, sometimes at district, sometimes at state. And we've known each other probably since I'd say 76, 77, 1976, 1977.
Yeah, that sounds right.
So that's a while.
Who were you playing with, Wally, before you started curling with Steve?
In competition, it was started off with Jim Gemmel. He was originally from North Dakota, and that's when I was still swinging corn. He had a fabric broom, and I just forget who else was on
Beaver
that
tail?
team.
The
Beaver. It was not a beaver tail. It was a cloth broom. I forget what they were called. Steve,
but not
you
the
remember?
push broom, still the old school, like
Yeah.
slapping.
Yeah,
One of the rink rack styles.
Rink rat. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
that's right. And then for quite a few years after that, I was curling with Mike Bisbee. And we locked heads a few times with Steve and his team during the early 80s, late 70s. And then, like Steve said, we joined together in 1986.
And
Got it.
when did you come to the U.S.? 'Cause you're
It was
from Winnipeg, right?
1976 or 77. I think it was 1976.
Where are you from previously?
It came down from Toronto. I was living in just outside of Toronto when I got a company transfer. Before that, I grew up in Manitoba, about 80 miles west of Winnipeg.
Okay.
And then I came down here from Toronto. The interesting story. The first summer that we were here, we moved down, I think, in the spring, in April or May. And one of the first things I did is took a look in the Yellow Pages to find out where the nearest curling club was to the west side of Madison.
Okay. That's how long ago it was. People still used phone books back then, Joel.
And was that Madison or was that Lodi?
No, I was living on the west side of Madison, my first place when we moved here. And I wanted something on the west side because, you have a few pops after a game. You don't want to be too far to drive.
Right.
And when I looked in the phone book, there was no curling clubs listed, not even one, let alone in my neighborhood. So I had to do a little digging to find somebody that knew about the club, and finally got in there.
Who did you meet, or how did you find out about the club?
Actually,
I assume in Madison you started curling in Madison, right?
I started curling Madison.
Okay.
Yeah, always been a Madison curler since I've been here. But a coworker, a colleague of mine, knew a guy that was curling, and his name was Jack Jarrett, and that was actually the same year that Jack Jarrett was president of the curling club.
Okay.
So I got a hold of his phone number out of the phone book.
Okay.
Called him, and I talked to him. I didn't have very much equipment, so I asked him where I could find some curling equipment. And this is still in the summertime, and he says, "Well, Laurie Carlson has curling equipment." So I had to dig him up and find get a couple of things. I needed a broom and a few other things, and then through Jack Jarrett again, I got introduced to a club member and curled for him as his third the first year, because first year new curlers could not be skips.
Got it. Okay. That checks out in the like the hierarchy of things back in the day, I would imagine.
That's the way it was back in the day. Yeah.
And back then, did you have to be sponsored by somebody to come into the club?
You had to sign. Yeah. You had to sign a card. As a matter of fact, that's interesting you bring that up, Joel. And Jack Jarrett gave me the card and said, "Welcome to the curling club." That's all. I just had to sign my name and put my contact information down. And then he said, "You'll be curling with Arnie Wake."
Oh my goodness.
That must be a name from a long time ago. I don't know Arnie at all. So was he was a character, or just that was a blast from the past?
Let's just leave it that way.
Well,
He was
okay.
a character.
He was a character. He was a fun guy. Of course, we're only playing on 4 sheets at a time, and I think we only had 2 draws a night. One at I don't think we had an early draw. We had one at 6:30 and one at 8:30, I think.
Okay.
And he was an interesting club member.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Steve, how did you get in? I mean, I guess how you started curling not in Madison, right? How did you get into Madison ultimately?
Well, my curling started in the big metropolis of Galesville, about 900 people.
Right. Yeah.
And I was actually 3 steps away from the curling club. I was in my backyard.
Okay.
And we used to go in there when we were only 6, 7, 8 years old on a daily basis. We'd go in, sneak in the club room, and throw some stones. Iceman got pretty knowledgeable of what we were doing, so he started locking from the ice house up into the club room where the light switch was. He locked the door, so we could actually get into the ice house through little side doors, because back in those days it was all natural ice. It wasn't any artificial ice, so they had to keep these doors open to keep the ice cold.
Got it.
But he'd lock the door, and that would make us kids really upset. And we'd go out there. It was pitch dark. So in the days where he did that, we thought, well, what the hell? We're still going to have fun. So one kid would take a couple rocks to the far end, and another guy would stay at the close end. And we were just, again, 7, 8 years old, 9 years old. We'd put both feet in hacks, and we'd do a belly flop, and we'd shove that rock just as hard as we could towards the other end. And the kid at the other end would do the same thing. We'd time it. We'd throw it.
Oh.
And then we'd wait for about 4 seconds, and we'd hear that crash of the granite. And we'd just we'd giggle, and we'd laugh, and we'd think that's funny. And we'd do that 2, 3 times, and geez, every time they hit, they just exploded and be rocks all over. But the secret was, if you threw that rock and you counted 1,003, 1,004, and you didn't hear a bang, you thought, uh-oh, you got the hell out of there. And about 2 seconds later, that rock would come flying in, hit the hack, turn over, and it just wipe you out. I mean, so whoever hit you, it killed you. So, and then he'd come in, and all of a sudden, he'd come through that front door. We didn't know it. And he'd turn the light on, and he looks out, and here's rocks just spread all over the place. Kick us out, and get mad, swear at us. But we'd go back and do the same thing the next day. So.
Did you ever break any rocks?
No, we never did. That's why I believe
Not
a
as
rock can't
not
be
as
broken.
far as you know. Yeah.
No. So.
Wally, where'd you start curling?
Well, when I was growing up, when I was in elementary school, I think I was 6 or 7 years old when I threw my first stone. We lived in a farming community, and we had 2 clubs. One was 3 miles east of us, and one was 3 miles west of us.
Okay.
The one that was east was in a town called Rosendale, and it was an interesting setup for a curling club because it had one sheet, and
One sheet.
and that sheet was for the parents to curl on, and on each side and around the ends was a skating surface. So it was actually
Okay.
like three curling sheets wide, but around the ends, kids could skate all the way around in a circle around the curling sheet.
Huh. Okay.
So not only could the parents curl, but they could keep an eye on the kids too.
Sure.
Make sure they don't get on the curling ice with their skates on.
Yeah. That would be interesting.
And that was in Rosendale. Lavenham had a one-sheet club as well. Now these towns, the population was less than 50.
And they still but they still had a curling.
Still a
He had
That's awesome.
had a curling club, and
How many bars?
no bars.
Oh.
No, you're talking Canada, and they don't have bars. They didn't have bars back then, and there wasn't a hotel. Hotels are where you usually got the pub.
Oh,
Okay.
And the nearest one was probably 15 miles away.
Whoa.
But in Lavenham, the other town that had a one-sheet club was just that. It was one sheet only, and it was like a long tunnel that you curled on that one sheet.
Mm-hmm.
And in both of these places, the place in Lavenham, when they had a bonspiel, naturally it was natural ice, and we had the big windows on the side of the building, so you could open it and let the cold air in, keep the ice. But they'd have a 16-team bonspiel
On one sheet.
on one
on
sheet.
one sheet. It took a week because they didn't curl it in the morning or the afternoon. They curled it at night. so it took a while to work through that schedule. And in Rosendale, with the skating ice, they'd flood the side skating surfaces to curl, so you'd have 3 sheets. And they used to have weekend bonspiels. You could have 16 teams and get it done
On
on
a
a
weekend.
weekend with 3 sheets.
3 sheets.
Yeah.
Okay.
No skating then.
No. Wow.
So where is this? Like, is this Rosendale? Is this kind of right by Morris?
Well, you played in Portage.
Yeah.
We were about 18 miles southwest of Portage.
Okay.
So just for geographical sake.
All right.
Got it.
Portage La Prairie, that is.
Portage la Prairie.
Home of the
Manitoba.
water slide in the hotel that's connected to the curling club. A lot of people have talked about the water slide on this show, or multiple people have. I don't know if you guys can remember that, but if you haven't,
I don't
remember the
you
water
haven't
slide.
curled in Portage if you haven't gone down the water slide.
Yeah.
That's kind of the general rule.
Nice.
It's
That's
interesting.
awesome.
Wally mentioned like It didn't curl during the day. And the reason was, 'cause, again, it was all natural ice in those days.
Uh-huh.
I remember the Gilzo and Bobby Burns Bonspiel, same thing. It was a big thing. 32 teams, annual tournament, the Bobby Burns Bonspiel. And they would start curling like as early as they could in the morning. And then about 10:30, 11 o'clock, when the sun came out, the ice would start to melt. And they'd have to quit curling until about 6, 7 at night. And then they would absolutely curl all night long.
All night.
Really?
That's the only way they could catch up.
That's awesome.
Just-
How many sheets was Galesville? 3?
that was 3. That was a
3.
big one.
Okay. Wow.
But there was also Centerville that was only 4 miles down the road.
Right.
And they had a little 3-sheeter too. So
They had
you'd
3
use-
sheets.
Centerville was the Quonset hut.
Yeah, it was a little Quonset hunt. Yep.
The interesting thing about natural ice is that it's very difficult to play on because it's unpredictable. After you have a sunny day, the next day the ice is totally different than it was the day before.
Sure.
Because
Well, sure, it's a new flood.
melted-
Yeah, I mean, it's all brand new ice. So would when it start to melt, would whoever was playing, you'd take the rocks off the sheet?
Yeah,
Yes.
take the rocks off the sheet and set them somewhere where they're going to keep cold.
Uh-huh.
And I know a few times when the ice was still wet at 6 o'clock when they're ready to start the bonspiel again, a lot of the curlers would go and they'd shovel snow in through the windows. They'd open up the windows and let the cold air in, but they'd shovel snow onto the ice and then push that snow up and down the sheet of ice to absorb the water. Then they'd throw it back out through the window again and
Throw out
get
the
ready
slush.
to pebble.
Yeah.
Wow.
And when that water was on there, that film,
Yeah.
they would the teams that could throw rockers, they would actually try and throw rockers to get the rock just wobbling going, and
Yeah,
that way
sure.
it wouldn't slow down and wouldn't grab so quick. So if you were a big strong guy, you had a tremendous advantage when the ice was starting to go out or hadn't
throw
set
it
it
and
in
just-
yet.
Just kind of get it kind of rotating down. Wow. That's wild. I can't even imagine that now. That's
Well, I
When-
think,
yeah.
well, the time that we had to play on natural ice two years ago during the pandemic, right out.
Oh, yeah.
out in the park,
Yeah.
like
out in the park.
we had to throw Mary Broman style. One, because we were covered in clothes and like 8 layers of clothes because it was so cold. But put the brush around the handle and just whip it. Got it. Our team that got us the
We
Third
won
event final?
Third event world championship of the world.
Championship
in
of the
that
world.
event.
We did.
Yeah, we did. Of course.
but yeah, it was natural ice was tough.
Oh, yeah, it was
Very
tough.
tough.
What I mean, how? I mean, can you even compare it to curling today?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I mean, it was the same in that it had rings and rocks, but
The rings weren't necessarily colored, or if they were colored, it was very, very pale color. They didn't
Okay.
put a lot of coloring in the circles. But the hacks were dug into the ice so that it was the hacks were about maybe 2 inches lower than the surface of the ice, so you could
Had to jump
you
out
could
of it.
Jump out.
Jump out. Yep.
And back then, that was just when everything was changing as far as where you could release from, because curling originally you threw the rock from a standing position. And from a crampet, they called it.
Okay.
You didn't
It
slide.
was basically just like a board that was
That's right. It was just like a
on
board.
the ice.
Yeah, and then when I started curling, the slide was just coming into effect, but that time you couldn't slide back past the tee line. You had to release before the tee line, so it's almost like throwing from the crampet, anyways.
Yeah.
And then a few years later, they changed it to sliding out to the hog line, but your body had to stop before it reached the hog line. Remember that,
Dead
Steve?
stop. Yep.
Yeah, it had to come for a dead stop.
Did you have good enough shoes that people could slide out past it?
Well, the curling shoes that we used had leather soles. They're street shoes with leather soles, so they'd slide. There was no curling
there
equipment
was
back
no
then.
Teflon.
The only curling equipment that was available back then was a broom.
I used
corn
penny
broom.
loafers. That had the best sliding surface. Penny loafers.
Sure. Okay.
Wow. When did Teflon come in? I assume you guys, you had to have slid on.
That
Yeah,
didn't
well,
start till late 60s,
the
early
60s,
70s,
yeah.
probably.
60s?
Teflon.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they were half sliders at the
Yeah,
time.
they were actually. It wasn't Teflon shoes. Teflon sliders
Right.
came
so
out.
like a pull-on thing, like they still have.
Right.
You can still get some of them today. Got it.
And back then, it was very common to have a tuck, so you just had a Teflon slider that went over the front part of your foot.
Sure. Nice.
And when they were still stopping the delivery before the hog line, you're almost stopped anyways because you didn't have much of a sliding surface on your shoes. But the sliding surfaces got better when people started looking for shoes that would slide better than the other ones.
Uh-huh.
And then they had to change that rule because curlers would release the stone before the hog line,
Right.
stand up quick, and step over the hog line while they're still in motion. So
So you got to be quick.
so you had to be quick, yeah.
Wow. What? So then, if that, I would assume it's like if you slide over now, it's just a hog stone. It's just a pulled fouled rock or whatever you want to call
Nobody
it.
ever did it, but that's what it would be, yeah.
Sure. You'd have to call it on your. I mean,
You'd call on yourself.
self-police.
Yeah.
What
And-
about when you got to like nationals or worlds? Were there officials, or when did officials?
I don't think there
then,
was no officials back then.
Okay.
But I know the early championships started when you had to stop before the hog line.
Got it.
Yeah, and they did. You could work it out so you can do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like it is now that you get to that level, you're good enough to do it. They're letting the rock. I mean, everybody lets the rock go now almost all the time before the hog line.
Yeah.
I mean, you've practiced. They've thrown hundreds of thousands of rocks. You just got good at it, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It's just a different another skill. You said you so you swept with corn.
I swept
right?
with corn.
Did you always skipped, right, Steve?
I used a corn broom in high school, Little
Okay.
Beaver corn broom.
Okay.
And I remember they were $4.95 at the local hardware store.
That's
And,
probably when was that? Like 1965?
I graduated from high school in '65, so
1965. What do you think? What do you think?
Inflation adjusted. That's
Yeah.
that was an expensive broom.
I was just
Probably
gonna say,
was, yeah.
what's that now? Like $75 or something? I don't know. I mean, that would be $4.95.
Did the
All
local
right.
hardware store sell any other curling supplies or just the brooms?
just the broom, as far as I know, that's the only thing they had.
That
That
was
was the
about
only
the-
thing there was for curling.
That's the only thing you
Right,
needed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because a lot of club curlers would be out there with the buckle overshoes on the ice, so they didn't
Wow.
fall down.
Sure. Okay. Nice.
I actually remember going to Sault Ste. Marie to go their closing mixed Bondsfield. It was like a 120 team Bondsfield in
Holy
April.
cow.
And we went up there, and there was a team from Milwaukee, and we curled with a couple from Two Rivers at the time. They had a club up by Manitowoc.
Okay.
And in that 120 team Bondsfield, the team from Milwaukee had 4 push brooms, and
Okay.
we had 2 on our team. The couple from Two Rivers had corn brooms.
Okay.
We were the only 6 people on the ice with push brooms. That was the first time, and that was like about 76 or so. And
Okay.
It was just amazing how, and people were actually watching our game because they couldn't believe people were using push brooms. It was a little hair. And then, I mean, it only took, 4 or 5 years? And, I mean, the scale just tipped so quickly towards the push broom concept.
And those were old horsehair or those
Old horsehair and
hog
hog hair, both. They were both came out about the same time.
I mean, it's probably like the change from fiberglass to when carbon fiber started to come out. I mean,
Be similar.
you know, the top teams. I mean, you go back to even probably Furby definitely was using fiberglass, weren't they?
Yeah, that was
Ooh.
a quick
But-
transition as well.
But I mean, it was
The first time I ever saw a carbon fiber
yeah.
was at the. It wasn't even released like to the public yet, but it was in the Tour Championship, in like was either 03 or 04.
Okay.
And
And these are the carbon fiber ones that we would know today as
yeah,
carbon fiber.
and I mean it was a different version, but it was same weight, like just
Similar.
just as light, or maybe
Yeah.
not as light as the very lightest ones now, but really really close.
Right.
And I was playing against Brad Gushu, and he was like 2 days out of juniors.
Sure.
And I said, what's this broom you got here?
Yeah.
And he says, check it out. And he hands it to me head end first.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling the
weight of the head.
weight of the handle. Like,
sure.
when I'm like, I grab it and then all I can feel is the handle and there's just nothing there.
Right.
And he said, he just laughed. He's like, I had the same reaction. He said, they sent me the box and I thought it was empty. Because they took them they had just gotten them, because I think that was when he had just qualified for his first Briar.
Sure.
And he hadn't even gone, this was before the Briar,
Yeah.
like a week or two before the Briar, and this was the first event that they were like trying him out in, and they were going to take him to the Briar the next week or 2 weeks later or whatever.
Yeah.
But that was, so that I can't remember if that was 03 or 04, but by the time 06 came around,
Pretty much.
I don't think that anybody had like fiberglass handles anymore.
Do you know what brand came out first with that?
Performance.
Performance?
The what was it called? The Revolution.
I think so, something like that.
It's just this kind of ugly black thing, had a big old
Sticker on it. Yeah. Sure.
But then it did not take long at all for all the other companies to realize that they needed one of those too. So for like 1 year, Performance dominated, and then it got spread out amongst all the other companies again.
Sure.
But yeah, that was a quick transition.
It took quite a while for the brushes to come into existence, because they first came into North America with the Scots when they came over to play the early version of the World Championships.
Okay.
It was a silver broom, right?
Well, yeah, back then it was.
Wasn't silver broom yet?
No, it wasn't even McDonald's tobacco yet. It was a Scotch Cup, I think it was what they called it. But anyways, they'd be the only team with these push brooms, and nobody else in North America used them or probably had even seen them. And it took quite a while. That was back in the '60s. It took till almost the '90s for them to become commonplace. So it took a while. A lot of corn broom swingers said those brushes will never work. They'll be gone, and in next year you won't see any. They finally caught on.
Because wasn't it first seen as like a junior thing, right? Like you use that first, or did you go right into corn?
No, juniors you went right into corn. Yeah. Yeah, it wasn't until people started realizing how much easier it was to sweep those things than swing corn. they picked up then.
Yeah, well, and then for a while, wouldn't guys or teams have just like a whole bag full of stuff? Like you'd have push brooms and then you'd have corn brooms. I feel like I've heard stories of world championships or national championships where a team would be getting beat and then they'd bring out the corn brooms and kind of mess up the ice. And is that true, or am I misremembering?
There's lots of stories about that.
There was a lot in these guys' era where there was some
Gamesmanship?
There was some questionable sportsmanship decisions that I don't know how much they want to discuss.
You don't have to say who it was, but you can say there was a team.
But there were multiple teams.
Yeah.
From every country, but definitely there was some in the U.S. that they would have good corn brooms and they would have shitty corn brooms and they would have push brooms, and it all depended on what the score of the game was.
And
what they were using.
Got it.
And there was more than a few heated conversations between these two and some of those other teams.
What? So, did you, when playing each other, ever do that? Do you recall?
Not against each
No,
other.
not against each other.
That's when we were playing competitively. But again, it really was. It's gamemanship. And if the officials, it was beyond officials because they were unaware of anything that was going on. I mean, they just had no concept. They'd never played under those conditions.
Sure.
And there
And
really
ordinarily,
wasn't-
it was always an even playing field. If both teams used straw, everything was fine. Both teams used brushes. But when you use a straw broom that is old and purposely, just falls apart. So you can actually sweep to make the stone just virtually come to a stop. And against a push broom, it was a very unlevel playing field. But the officials weren't aware of that, and there was just no legislation against it. So
Got it.
they got by with it for several years, and actually at the World Championship, I think one of the first times there was a turnaround, and Kevin Martin, to this day, I consider him a really close friend, but he was one of the Canadians that tried to pull out the corn brooms when they were getting beat by a Scottish team at the World Championships.
Yeah.
And the Canadians actually booed him because of what he was doing. And,
Wow.
it was amazing. And
Wow.
after that, it basically, I think then slowly but surely the legislation came in that you weren't allowed to use them. And
You couldn't switch back and forth. You had to choose one.
right.
But back, when
Right.
prior to that, you could flip flop the whole game. And
Sure.
like these guys, I don't know how much they want to talk about it, but like they had to learn how to sweep corn again. Wally was the only one who knew how the hell to do it,
Yeah.
like any good. And Pustovar, he was all right at it. But they had to like reintroduce corn to their game just to combat the corn that was being used against them because their hair brooms wouldn't pick up the shit
Got
that
it.
was being dumped on the ice by other teams.
Sure.
So they'd have to like basically have a corn broom
And a
that
hairbrush.
was they'd use one of each
Got
to try and the corn broom would basically clear corn out of the way.
Yeah.
That was its only job, and the push broom would actually sweep the rock like we know,
Similar
like
to what
we
we
think,
do today.
like
what
to
we
make a
think
rock
we
go
know.
farther or straighter.
Got it.
So were the officials just not competitive players or didn't know how to
there weren't many
do this corn, or they didn't?
until the early 90s or late 80s. There wasn't really any officials until you got to the World Championships. There wasn't
Wow.
really any officials at nationals. They might have one or two out there, but in those days there wasn't many officials, and the officials didn't really know what was going on either because they're usually some of the old hierarchy of the old crumpet curling.
Sure.
And another interesting fact about using brooms, dry brooms, so they leave debris on the ice, that one of the reasons we never did it is because we felt that if we get out there and do that, we got to throw rocks through that stuff too. So we might only be hurting ourselves by dusting up the ice. So that's another factor you had to take into consideration. You have two teams doing it, then it's going to be really messy out there.
Sure.
I think that there also wasn't as much legislation or rules about it, like because it wasn't clear to. I mean, it was clear to the players who know what's going on,
Right.
that they are switching equipment because they think the situation calls for it.
Yeah.
But there's no specific rules that say you can't switch between different brooms, so it's not technically cheating.
Yeah.
Even though it
So
very
it, was, but
much
it wasn't
didn't.
against, it wasn't against the rules.
Would
but
Yeah, but it was very much
was
against,
very much
the,
against the
whole
spirit
spirit of curling.
yeah.
Would stuff like that happen? I assume you guys played leagues, like you played league nights, or did you not?
Yeah, we played leagues
Would
back
stuff
then.
like that happen in leagues or not really?
No,
That
not-
was
not really,
Just more
no.
casual and just
Yeah, it
you
was-
know,
it
the
was-
guys were out.
The
And,
times we're talking about through the 80s when it happened to us several different times, it was only about 2 or 3 teams
sure,
in the whole country that did it.
sure,
So you never really played against them the whole year until you got to the Nationals.
got it.
And then,
they'd
there
pull
might
it
be
out.
times where they didn't do that at all. If they're playing against teams that they were beating up, they just used push brooms like everybody else.
Got
And
it.
it wasn't until they got into a competitive situation or a game where they were
That
in
they-
danger, and they're down by 2 or 3, they go to their bag and pull out the old corn broom. And where it really got exaggerated is when they would actually sweep into the stone. I mean, the concept of the old days of, and Bud and Bobby and some of the Attingers from Switzerland were using corn brooms. It was really beautiful, but they're, just swishing going down the ice.
Right.
These guys would actually take the brush, and as the stone is coming across the hog line, it could be clearly hack weight.
Yeah.
They would just move towards the rock, sweeping, basically aiming their corn broom at the rock, and the straw would just shoot out and go
basically
underneath the stone,
sweeping into
and
it.
it would just come to a screeching halt and go sideways behind the guard. I mean, you might only have 4 inches of curl, and they
Yeah.
could make it curl 3.5 feet because they'd put a bunch of straw
Because
in
they
there.
put straw. Wow.
And they knew what to do. They'd go up by the hog line and slap the broom by maybe 3 times on the ice. Just put enough straw out there so the rock continues, but it starts to dig in and it'll stop right on the forefoot. They
Wow.
they learn
Wow.
how to do this.
And they're good enough to know how to do it to make it curl and not like pick and go the other way.
Yeah,
as long as there
Oh,
was
yeah.
handle on it, it would always just
right.
it would grab the shit, but it would just continue
It would
with
just
the
keep
with
going.
the same handle.
In 1987, I think it was, we were playing the national championships in Lake Placid.
Okay.
And we were playing against a team that knew how to do this.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, we were using brushes then. The brushes that we used then were very wide. They're almost like 10 inches in width. And
Okay.
you had to have that in order to keep the corn away from the running surface of the stone.
Sure. Okay.
But talking about umpires in that game, we were complaining that that this team was doing that, but there was no umpires to complain to, and we knew that in the audience was members of the board of directors of the USCA. And we turned around and looked at them, and they couldn't do anything either. They couldn't make ruling on it either.
Because there wasn't a rule. It was
not
just,
a rule. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So we
Also,
got
they're not going to make a rule like right during.
they're not going to make a rule.
They're
then,
going to
no.
make a rule during an event. So
Got it.
Yeah,
Got
so that was as late as '87. That and then after that, more and more umpires started coming to these events, and
Got it.
they started training umpires and so
And
on and so
then-
forth.
When was corn legislated out?
It's not legislated
not.
down.
Oh, it's not.
Well,
It's
no, it
still-
is now.
Is it?
I
well,
think so.
for competitive play.
You can't.
Sure.
Yeah. Nowadays, like ever since, I think in theory it was probably still legal up until this whole Broomgate thing.
Sure.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
But now you have to have this one material, and
Right.
it has to
At
be on
championship play.
at any championship play, and
Got
it
it.
has to be a swivel head. You can't even have a fixed head
Got it.
because you could put too much. You can just put all your weight on one corner of a
Oh.
broom. So they have to be swivel, and they have to be the one fabric. But
Not
before,
sure I knew about the swivel thing.
yeah.
Huh. Fun.
I do remember playing against Travis Way at Junior Nationals in Schenectady 95 or 6.
96.
96. And he accidentally stepped out. They were doing their practice slides. He had this corn slide broom. They were doing their practice slides, and he accidentally stepped out on the ice with his slide broom to go down there to go skip. He picked up his regular broom, and the umpire came out and said, "No, you stepped out on the ice with the corn broom. He had to play with the corn broom." So he was skip. He skipped with the corn broom.
That was a rule for a while. That what you started with is what you kept through the whole
Yeah,
game.
but what you stepped out on the ice with, unless it was a broom. And I think it took us. It took him an extra like 2 ends to kick our ass, but those 2 ends though, like man,
You really felt like you had a chance.
we felt we had a chance.
So he having the corn broom, like I'll tell a story that's not related to anybody here because we won't, offend anyone, or you guys don't have to offend anyone. But he was very much, he was from the same club that a lot of these guys who had a bad reputation were from.
Got it.
And he knew how to put shit on the ice if he wanted to, and he was an excellent player. So he didn't need to most of the time, but the Rosas from Nebraska, they won some nationals in the late 90s, early 2000s, and
I remember this.
And he was very much in their head in general. And one of these junior nationals, I can't remember which one it was. It might have been that Rochester one.
I was there. So I was there in 96, 97, 98, 99. I think it was 97.
96 or 97.
Somewhere
He
in there.
walked out for a game against them, and
I think it was 97 because it was 90s. I think Travis Way won in Schenectady. And
we
then
beat him in the final in 97.
Yeah.
But in one of those championships, and I don't even think it was the final. It could have been the semi. It could have been a round robin game.
Yeah.
He was playing against the Rosas, and he walked out there with his corn broom, and this was like in practice, like before the game.
Yeah.
And he went out there and he just like beat the shit out of it, and just crap flying all over. And he basically just turned around and looked at him and like smiled. And so they all go in and they like switch their brooms and get their corn defender brooms, whatever they felt was the best broom to stop him from sweeping corn. And then he just put it away, never used it, and kicked the crap out of him. He just did it in practice just to mess with their heads. And it was a very powerful like mental tool against certain teams.
Wow.
And that was one of the teams. And
I do recall
And you
one
too,
time.
Joel, apparently.
Yeah. I thought one year the Roses brought out, they had a hog hair broom that they cored out the inside. They left the hog hair on the front edge and the sides, and then put a hammer pad
yep.
in the middle of it.
Yeah.
And that's what they used against them, I think, in the final.
Yeah, I think they had that. They built that broom specifically to play against him.
Yeah. And
Nice.
I remember they called the officials out for it, and the official looked at it and said, "It's a broom."
Yeah. When you guys played together, who did you play with? It was the two of you, and who else?
Godfrey and Richard Masco were
George Godfrey, for those of us.
through all those 5 years.
For those of our listeners who don't know,
Yeah.
George.
Pustovar played
And Paul.
the last couple years with
Yeah, I
you
think-
guys, and Richard didn't play for
2 of those years, I think.
Yeah,
couple of
90,
those
91, I think Pustovar joined us, and that's when that's when he took over the spot where that Richard left.
Okay.
And of course, when we go to usually to Worlds, and sometimes I guess even the Nationals, we'd have a 5-person team.
Uh-huh.
We'd have a spare, a sub. And in '91, our sub was Mike Forboni.
Correct.
He came with us. And,
Okay.
And he played just about as much time as lead as I did. I was lead in '91,
Okay.
and we kind of shared that position.
Got it. So your lineup, you generally played lead then, Wally?
In '86, I was third,
Okay.
and George was second, and Richard Maskell lead.
Okay.
And then and we played that way through the '80s.
Yep.
And then in 1991, Paul Pustovar came in as third, and I went down to lead, and George Godfrey was still at the second spot.
Got it.
Mike Ferroni and I shared that spot.
And 92, you'd had enough of Steve's shit. You left.
That's right. he says, I'm out of here, man.
Did you continue playing competitively after?
No,
No?
that's when I stopped playing competitively.
That was when you
yeah.
stopped playing competitively. You
But
moved
you
on, having a
struck-
family then?
Yeah, I'd become a single parent and had to dedicate a lot more time to my family than I did in the past.
Got it.
And
I think
Okay.
Wally wanted to get more into he's famous. He's a world winemaker. And I had some great stories
Let's
about
talk
Wally.
about wine.
Yeah,
let's stop talking about curling.
Yeah,
So-
let's stop talking about wine.
start
I
talking about-
didn't know any of this. Let's
So
tell me some wine stories.
we're-
Let's go.
We're going over it. We're getting invited to go to Switzerland after we went to the Worlds. You got an automatic invite to go to Switzerland, and that was such a sweet deal. Back in those days, you're going to get free transportation, free lodging, and you're playing against the best teams in the world over in Europe.
at the best place in the world.
Yeah, in Grindelwald, Switzerland. We just absolutely just love. So every year we did this. We actually went like 10 years in a row. My team went over, and Wally's with us most of those times. But so Wally had homemade wine,
Okay.
and so we're going to some of the greatest connoisseurs of wine in the world in Switzerland. But Wally's got some homemade dandelion wine, and I don't know what the other one was.
Bring this along to
You brought
Switzerland?
your homemade
You
wine
brought this
with
along?
you.
And you're allowed to carry this stuff back in those days in the
Yeah,
plane.
it's
You
not,
can do it.
you can do whatever.
So he's
whatever the
got
F
he's
you
got this
wanted.
bag with 4 big bottles. It might have been 6, but there's 4 for sure. And we go to O'Hare Airport, and we got like 3 hours to kill before our flight. So while he goes and
going.
we go to we find a locker, and we pay 50 cents, and he puts the wine in the locker, and we're off to this pub, and we have a few cocktails before we're gonna get on this long flight to Switzerland. And so now we look at our watch, and it's about time to go to the gate. We start walking back, and we get about 50 yards from the locker. There's a bunch of people all congregated around it. What's going on? We get a little bit closer. My God, they're right by our locker. We can't figure out what's going on. We kind of start walking over that way, but real slowly. We stop about 10 yards short. And there's red wine just flowing out of the locker. All over. This is all over. It's all over the floor. There's a couple of security people there, people looking, you know. What happened is, Wally, the cork, what happened? You have to explain the process, but what happened?
Before this, I was making backyard wine. I'd use raspberries and strawberries that I grew in my own yard.
Okay.
And before we went to Grindal this one time for a couple of years prior, Steve and the boys, Wally, you got to bring over some of your Wally World wine, because I had a label made with Wally World on it. And so I says, okay, I'll bring some over. Well, I decided to bring, because I knew they're great people, or they're wine people. So I had made some grape wine,
Okay.
and it was working and fermenting and everything for about a year.
Uh-huh.
But it wasn't quite long enough. So when I put the corks in, and we got up in the air, I had the wine sitting down beside me by my feet, and I'd hear a little pop.
Oh no.
So I'd reach down, I'd find the pop, the cork, and I push it back. So I knew that it hadn't been aged long enough. And then we got to this locker deal that Steve was telling you about. One of the wine bottles had overflowed, and we didn't have any mops or anything else. We got the other 3 bottles out of there. we went to the
So
airplane.
you collected the wine. I mean, I would have just abandoned it at that point. I'd just been
I
like,
have a different version of that story. I honestly don't think. I think we were so scared. I think all the corks popped, and I think we thought, we're dedicating those to O'Hare. Let's get the hell out of here. I don't think we took any along. But I don't know which one was right.
One
but-
of our trips to wine made it to Switzerland, so that might
I
have
know,
been
I know it went at least once.
Yeah.
one of the trips that made it, but you had to keep recorking it because it was
But
when
It was
it
too,
was at
it
like
was too young. It
9,000
was still
feet.
working. Yeah.
Nice. Got it.
but after the spiel, we got invited, to a special dinner.
Okay.
And we're with 6 of the most influential people in Switzerland in curling. We got the president of the association and the president of the of the Spiel and the sponsors, and and they're ordering $150 or $200 bottle of wines. But here's Wally's World's wine right here too. They're passing it around. They're all taking a swig. And we can't tell if they're the most gentleman people in the world. Or,
Yeah.
I think they're pretty gracious.
They're on their own podcast right now telling about the time the Americans came over. We had to drink this stuff they called wine. I'm not sure what it was, but it wasn't wine.
And I will tell one more quick wine story now.
You have another wine story?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, let's go. I want to hear another wine story.
So Hans-Peter Glaner, he was the president of the Swiss Curling Association.
Okay.
He was the one responsible for getting us invited to these tournaments. And he owned the Hotel Caprice, and they have the most famous curlers bar in the world down in the basement of this chalet.
Okay.
And we're down there.
Now, when you say it's a curler's bar,
It was decorated. Well, that's where a lot of the curlers hung out during the Bull Trophy, the International. And it's all decorated and curling stuff down there and stuff like that.
Got it. So other people could go down there, but it was very curling themed.
But we stayed there.
That's
and
where
so,
they kept the live bull?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, right in the basement.
The live bull down there?
Smelled great.
So the one night, though, I think the competition might be over.
Don't drink the milk.
And we're down there, and it's like 12:30, 1 o'clock in the morning, and we've been having pops with him all night. And it's just Wally, myself, and George. I think it's just the four of us. And he just kept pouring us wine and pouring us wine. And every time he'd pour a glass of wine, he'd give one to Wally, and he says, "This is the kind of glass you got to use for this type of wine."
Yeah,
Right.
He was educating me on which glasses to use with which wine.
Sure. Okay.
And Wally
Okay.
is all into this, And,
Yeah.
and Hans-Peter would say, "Well, you can have that glass." And well, thank you. And he'd put it in his coat pocket. And then he'd get a different kind of wine. He said, "Well, you got to have a different glass for that."
Yeah.
He'd give it, I put it in his other pocket.
Okay. All right.
And I'm not kidding you. He ended up with about 6 or 8 different wine glasses.
Okay.
And so he's got one in every pocket. I mean, every single pocket.
All
and
right.
it's cold
I'm
in Switzerland.
with you.
This is in January, and it's Fahrenheit is probably well below zero.
Okay.
And when you walk out, we lived in a motel right below, 50 yards down the hill from him. But when you walk out his door, there's a little 4-foot drop off. And so we're leaving, and we're just giggling and laughing. And
You're drunk.
And we're drunk.
You're drunk.
And that's a nice way to say it. We were
I don't think you should beat around the bush that much. You guys were drunk, and you walked out the front door.
We're
and
all
you had to
adults
go
here.
50
We're all
yards.
curlers.
And he
We know
locks the door. I mean, we haven't. So we're 1 foot outside the door, and he locks the door, and he turns around and go back in. Wally takes one step, and he slips on the ice, and he falls over this little 4-foot thing, and he lands flat on his back. And all you could hear was tingle, 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 tingle. And he's flat on his back, and he's looking up. Steve, I think I broke all the glasses. And we're laughing at him, and Christ, he could have severed his neck. There's so much glass around. He says, "I don't know if I should move. Everything, there's glass everywhere I go." And anyhow, we dug him out of that snowbank, got him up there, and not one glass survived.
Oh, man.
And I did. Hans-Peter learned about this only about 5 years ago when I told him the story.
Is that right?
That's why there was so much glass.
I was wondering where all that glass came from when the snow melted. Yeah.
Never got one home. Oh.
Oh, man. Do you still remember what kind of wine goes in what kind of glass?
Oh,
Wally?
heck no.
No way.
Whatever the bartender brings it in.
Wine goes in a glass. I don't care what shape it is. It's fine. Nice.
Craig, you want to tell the story about how you pushed Wally up the hill?
I will tell that story. So in Grindelwald as well, there was a few years where they had 2 tournaments in a row, 2 weekends in a row with big tournaments, and the week in between, a lot of the foreign teams would just hang out and vacation. But then on Wednesday, there was a spiel called the Glen Farkless Spiel, which was a little one-day thing sponsored by a whiskey company called Glen Farkless.
Okay.
And all these foreign teams, they would stick around, and it was sort of like a charity spiel situation where it was like a celebrity spiel, I should say, not a charity thing, but everybody'd pay their entry, and then they'd get teamed up with a foreign player who was there for these 2 big spiels.
Sure.
And so it was mostly locals and, some higher ups or people who thought they were important. And they'd pay this money and they'd play with these people from, the U.S. or Canada or Norway or something like that.
Wherever.
But it's sponsored by this Scotch company. And so, the spiel starts at whatever, 9 in the morning, and it starts with a toast of scotch. And like if somebody makes a good shot, everybody stops their game and has a toast of scotch. And if when the game's over, everybody has a drink of scotch. And then there's another game, and it all happens again. And then there's lunch, and lunch is like a 3-hour-long 4-course like drinking event.
Got it.
With food
and a bowl of scotch.
I mean, like that's basically like you had to work hard to get a beverage that day that wasn't scotch.
Got it.
Because that
wasn't Glen Farkless scotch.
That wasn't Glen Farkless scotch.
Got it.
And
was it a good scotch? Like
I don't know. I don't drink scotch.
World class.
So I mean, it was. I think it was okay.
Stephen
scotch,
Wally say yes.
Stephen Wally say
I'm
yes.
gonna go with Stephen Wally on this.
And
Craig still doesn't like scotch. So.
I still don't like scotch. It wouldn't have mattered if it was the best scotch. I probably wouldn't have cared
You
for
wouldn't
it
have
that
cared for
much.
it anyway.
But the year that I think we're referencing, I don't think I was even playing. I think I was just there, like watching these guys play.
Right.
And
skiing.
But I have played in this Glen Farkless spiel once or twice as well. But basically, it's just you wake up and there's drinks, and then there's lunch with lots of drinks, and then you curl a little bit more in the afternoon, and there's a lot more drinks.
More drinks of scotch.
And then there's some drinks in between the drinks and the next drinks.
And pre-drinks and then post-drinks.
And then there's like this big banquet where it's like fancy dinner and drinks.
And drinks. Okay, got it.
But I mean, by the time you are ready to go to dinner, you are at least
tickled
8 hours into your drinks.
Got it. Okay.
And Wally is, one of the most congenial guys in the world. He's friends with everybody. Everybody wants to have an extra drink with Wally. And he was, one day in particular, he was obliging all of these people.
Everybody.
Not known for turning it down.
And so I don't know,
Well, you don't want to be rude to the
15?
host.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm 15-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. And I'm just like walking out of the hotel to go, and I don't know if I was going for a walk down Main Street or if I was going to get some food or something.
You were doing something.
And Wally and George meet me at the bottom of the hill. It's kind of a big hill back up to the hotel.
Okay.
And it's, wintertime, there's snow, it's icy, it's slippery, and Wally's drunk. And, I mean, he's not just a little drunk, he's drunk, and he's just giggling. And I think that was a pretty good indication of your level of drunkenness, was how much you giggled. Would you agree with that? Yeah. And George sees me, and he says, "Craigie, God, thank God you're here. I need help." He's like, "With what?" I can't get him up the hill by myself. And you're just giggling. And so George and I, like, one under each arm, and you're trying your hardest. But we finally get you up the icy hill, get you to the hotel. And George says to you, I will always remember this maneuver. George says to you, "All right, Wally, we're just going to lay you down." And you say, "No, we got to go to the banquet. There's more dinner and drinks." And George says, "You're just going to take like a 10-minute nap, and then when I get out of the shower, then you can go in the shower, and then we'll go to the banquet and have more drinks." And you say, "Okay." And you lay down, you got all your clothes on, and you just grab the comforter, and you just roll over, and you're just rolled up like a burrito inside this comforter, and you say, "Oh, I'm nice and warm now. I'll see you in 10 minutes, then we'll go have some more drinks." And George woke you up about 10 o'clock the next morning. You hadn't moved once.
Yeah, I remember some of that night.
Sure you do.
But hey, you didn't break a glass, though.
Yeah, I didn't bring any glasses.
Didn't have any glass.
That's awesome. What? Yeah. I mean, you guys have to have stories upon stories upon stories of your travels. Like, how? You guys are all sort of from Madison, weren't you?
Yeah,
Was Richard
Richard-
living down here then? And
He was always living in Green Bay, but he played out of Madison.
got it. And then so when you guys would spiel, whose car would you take? How would you get there? What was it like spieling for you guys back in the day?
No, we traded off driving all the time. But
Okay.
the big thing back in those days, I don't think you ever got more than one motel room, hardly, did we?
No,
We get a room with two beds.
Two big beds. I guess they had queens back then.
Yeah.
And 4 people in that one room because we
Yeah.
didn't have any sponsors.
Right. Nobody had sponsors, and I can't imagine.
We lived pretty bare bones. And,
Sure.
But we had nice accommodations for a little while once.
Okay.
So we were at Fort Francis to a cash field.
Okay.
And so we get up there and we play game, and we get done late at night. I don't think we get off the ice until like 11 o'clock or something like that. And we don't have to play till like 4 the next afternoon.
Sure.
So we had a couple
Nice.
of drinks, but not that much. Just had a couple of drinks, and we're taking this curling very seriously. We go back to the motel, and right across the hall from our room, we noticed this door was ajar. And we opened the door and looked in there, and it was a big, beautiful boardroom. I mean, it had like a 20-foot long, just beautiful, thick table,
Okay.
and super leather chairs, and you know,
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff on them, like bulletin boards to have meetings and stuff like that. And we thought, well, this is a nice room, and it was wide open. So we went and got our 6-pack, and we all went in there, and we sat down. We put our feet up on the table, and we're just enjoying it. We're talking. We do this until about 1:30 in the morning. And we finally think, well, I think we probably ought to go to bed. But at the end of the boardroom, there's another door. Somebody says, well, what the heck's that door? We open the door and we look in there. Geez, a big suite. Just a beautiful room. 2 great big king beds, and back
Nice.
and everything. And here we are sleeping 4 guys in a room, 2
4 guys in a room.
bed.
Yeah.
And so, it's like 1:30, so nobody there, so the room is vacant. Well, hell, why don't 2 of us sleep in this room?
Heck yeah.
So one guy gets in one bed, I get in the other bed, and fall asleep, and all of a sudden we hear a noise, and a quick look at the alarm clock, and it's like 2:30. And geez, I hear the door, and I hear a key in the door, and we got it chain locked. And they open the door, and it goes open about 4 or 5 inches, and I see this lady looking through the door. Somebody's sleeping in my bed! Holy cow! I jump out so fast, and whoever's in the other bed jumps out. We run back through the boardroom trying to grab our clothes. We all shut the door. We don't know what ever happened, but somebody's sleeping in my bed.
That's
So
awesome.
could you get out the boardroom a different hallway than what was?
No, but it went, it was like equivalent of like 2 rooms down.
Okay.
So we kind of went right behind them, and snuck in the room hid before they knew what was going on. So we don't think they ever knew who it was. But
Well, allegedly. Allegedly, they don't. You don't know. That's pretty good. I like that.
Did you guys ever? You didn't really ever fly to a spiel unless you were going overseas, though, did you?
I don't think
That's
no,
right.
never.
Yeah.
Maybe once or twice toward the end of your career, you flew out west
I was gonna say,
to
was there?
Canada for a spiel or something, but
I don't remember ever doing that.
I don't either.
Even when we went to nationals in Seattle, we'd fly there, of course, but that was never just for a bonspiel.
No.
We're always driving.
Got
Of course,
it.
there was enough of them around the Midwest that we could get to.
Yeah. There wasn't a lot of cash fields back in those days.
No.
Very few. I mean,
Bemidji was a tough one to get to.
Bemidji was tough to get to.
Yeah,
Sure.
the speed limit was 55 miles an hour,
Oh.
and
That's awful.
most of the roads were two lanes. So.
and it used to snow in the winter. It doesn't snow anymore.
It doesn't
but
snow
it used to
anymore.
snow, so
And it used to be cold, and yeah.
cash fields are limited kind of. Sault Ste. Marie, Thunder Bay had 2 clubs. They had 2 cash fields, and Fort Francis had some. But I don't even think we got to Winnipeg for a cash field, did we? I don't
No,
think
no,
so.
we never went to a cash bill there. No.
Nice. I had a question. I forgot. Somebody come up with something.
You guys won bronze at Worlds, Silver Worlds
Yeah, when
The
in
bronze?
'86 and '91 we won the bronze.
and 91.
Yep,
Uh,
How was that?
that was pretty
Yeah, we
pretty
got
special.
to get, we got to be on the podium.
Yeah. That was pretty neat.
We were happy.
did you? This is gonna be a douchey question. Did you have to win the bronze, or was that back in the day that if you lost, like you'd win the page game to get into the 2-3, and then if you lost that game, then you won the bronze. Right.
In '86, we won against Switzerland.
Do they
The
have-
bronze medal game?
They didn't
Right.
probably have Page then. Did
No,
they?
there
Or
was no
it-
Page.
No,
it
there
was
was no
straight-
page.
It was just
Okay.
a straight semifinal.
Straight
final.
semifinal.
Semifinal. Okay, got it.
So one of the years you guys had to win the bronze. The other year, both teams who lost the semis got the bronze.
Yeah, '91 we shared it with Norway.
Oh, got it. Okay.
You shared
Sure.
a bronze?
Both teams got a bronze
bronze
because they
medal.
both lost the
Yeah.
semis. So
So you just didn't want to play the game? Like,
No, they
what-
didn't. They didn't.
They didn't have a
They
schedule.
just didn't play a game. So you also had a gold medal winner, silver medal winner, and then the two teams that got beat in the semis
Got
just
bronze.
both got bronze.
Okay.
Yeah,
how many years did they do that?
just a couple,
Just-
I think.
yeah.
they did
Yeah,
it for a
that
while
doesn't-
because I
This is the first time hearing of it, so it
in
couldn't have gone very
'94.
long.
In '94 at Junior Worlds, it was the same way. We lost the semis and we got the bronze, and so did I don't know Switzerland.
Both
or
teams.
some-
Both teams got the
Yeah,
bronze.
some other team that
Got it.
lost. Whatever the other team was that lost the semis also got a bronze.
Got it. Because
At juniors in '94. I don't know what year they stopped that entirely, but
because didn't Burr won bronze? Is that right?
He did.
I think he might have.
And
Sure.
and that was when it was Page.
yeah,
That was when it was Page,
And then
he lost
the
semi.
semifinal
And just got the
then just
bronze.
got
He
the
got
bronze.
into
Yeah.
That's-
the
okay.
He got into the 1-2 game.
Okay.
I think.
lost that,
That's-
lost the
lost-
1-2, and then lost the semi, and then was the bronze medal
right,
winner.
yeah.
But yeah, like
But
in 2000, I played men's, and we had to play for the bronze, and we lost that game. So somewhere between '94 and 2000 is when they switched it, and you had to
You
start
got the
playing.
fourth place medal just like Schuster got in the last Olympics.
Right.
Got
And
it.
then there was, another time where they just started giving it to the Page loser for a few years, and then they reinstituted it into a game again.
Got it.
But tell us another fun story that you guys can think of off the top of your head.
Well, back in the '80s and even in '91 when we were competing, that was before the free guard zone.
Mm-hmm.
There was no free guard zone. So a lot of the guards you see in front of the house now just weren't there
Right.
at that time.
How? So what? I mean, what were the scores in those games? Like
Two to one, 2-0, 4-3.
Yeah. Would
So anything like,
yeah.
did anybody ever get like 6? Like, was 6 like an anomaly?
Not very many big ends, right, Steve?
No, very few big ones.
Very few big.
Well, not
ones.
big ends, like, but scores like,
Oh,
Scores-
6 to 4, something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah, it would happen.
Some team. I mean,
Yeah.
it just depends. If you're playing really good teams, like in the semifinal that we lost in '91, I think it was to Scotland.
To David Smith.
David Smith.
Okay.
So we got behind. They were ahead like 2-1, I think it was, wasn't? And they had to
Yeah.
hammer.
oh,
2-1.
2-1,
And-
it's all over.
And yeah, they peeled. We never had. They peeled every. They never missed a peel
Wow.
the entire game.
Was
We
that
never
pretty
had-
much? I mean, was that the strategy back in the day? Was just kind
They-
of put stuff in there and hope somebody missed?
You could,
Was,
you could,
is
you
that
could,
how you scored?
you could,
essentially.
you could tell they had practiced
Yeah.
peeling a lot because every peel they threw had a lot of rotation.
Sure.
So they'd hit it, and even if they hit it almost dead center,
You
with
still
the
had a lot of
rotation,
action on
it
the
would- it would
shooter
go to the
and just-
board. Yeah, the shooter would go to the board.
Okay.
And at the higher level we play, like when you got to the Worlds, the ice was so good it was predictable. Like I think the reason we didn't see a lot of that in nationals and stuff leading up to that is we never had. I mean, it was truly reading the ice was an art back then. I mean, you had ice that would fall, and had pipe runs and everything else in it. And some of the nationals before it got big time were held in curling clubs.
Okay.
So you were dealing with a lot of, so reading the ice was a big factor in winning championships.
Got it.
When you got to the Worlds, you were playing on arenas, and it's kind of like now. The ice was just, everybody knows the ice, and you just throw that thing 100 miles an hour, and you can hit a quarter-inch off center and go flying off the sheet. But
So do you guys watch the game now and think the ice is too good? Like it's almost too easy, it's too predictable? Or do you think that it's good and then the shot making is more...
Well, yeah, the ice is good, and I don't think anybody would say it's too good because curlers like to play on nice ice, on good ice.
Sure.
That's predictable, and that's where the skills come through, and that's the interesting thing now, that the athletes in elite curling are so good at throwing multiple shots, putting the right amount of spin on the rock and everything else, and now that they compound that skill with the skill of sweeping and carving the rock. And it's just amazing that they can do what they can do. That we would never be able to make some of the shots that they make now back then.
Sure. Fitness is also, in all sports now is a big deal. Would you guys say that you were physically fit back in the day, or like what?
Or more fit than your opponents?
More fit than your opponents. What made a good curler back when you guys were playing competitively?
Well, I think our team took it more serious than practically anybody in the country. We were one of the first teams that really did the traveling to go to Thunder Bay and Sault Ste. Marie, and we get our butts whipped, but we go up there and we learned every time we went up there. We learned.
Yeah.
And a lot of teams could just think, oh my God, and you could destroy your confidence. But we'd go up there, even though we got our butts kicked, we'd come back and we'd play in the club, and we realized, geez, we can beat this team a lot easier now than we did a year ago because our strategy was getting better.
Sure.
And we're used to playing under pressure. And we didn't do the fitness training quite like they did now. But at the same time, I think we all did some physical activities. I joined a fitness club. We had our share of beers and cocktails, like a couple of stories you hear, but we basically took it really serious. We didn't do our drinking between draws or anything like that. At the end of the spiel, yes, we'd have some drinks, and if we won, we'd really celebrate. But we really took it serious.
Would you have like a cordial one in between games, or was it just, no, we're gonna have soda or we'll have water, we'll sit with you guys and we'll chat with you a little bit?
Yeah, usually not till the day was over. Once
the
day was over, we'd have a cordial, but up until then, not so much. And like Steve said, we would do our own stuff at the gyms. Not all of us were in the gym that much, but we practiced. And that's one thing. Kudos to Steve, is that he would get us together to practice. If you couldn't get together to practice as a team, then we'd be down on our lunch hour from work. We'd be throwing 32 stones at lunch hour, practicing. And actually, that was kind of frowned on by club members. That's not really fair to us, that you're down there practicing all the time, because you're getting too much better than we are. So it was kind of frowned on, but we went and did practicing anyways. With one, you'd be throwing a lot of draw shots. If there was two of you down there, you'd mix in some takeouts and that kind of thing. So
got it.
Yeah. Speaking of, I'm going to interject here a little bit about fitness and being in shape. And Wally, I believe it was the 1986 World Championships in Toronto, won. Would you get second place in the best butt contest? There was like a poll in the daily newspaper.
If you're not watching this episode, you should probably turn it on. Wally's face is now about the same color as his sweater.
No, that didn't happen. That didn't happen at a Worlds or even Nationals. That happened in our own club.
No,
this was at the Worlds. This
That
was
was at the Worlds, and I remember George was mad. 'cause
George
he
was
thought-
upset.
George thought he had the best butt, and you were the highest on the team for
That's
sure.
right. Then they heard about it back home, and they did it again back
And
home.
we-
Yeah.
Yeah, that caused team dissension because George was so sure that he was going to win the best butt contest. And when Wally won it, he was really. But no, it was funnier than heck. So
That's awesome.
It's like a fan poll, or I don't even know who voted on it.
And
but
we
it
didn't
was-
even
because
know.
all the women, it was basically women in the
Any
stands
woman
could
who
vote,
was
yeah.
there could just like fill out a little ballot and put it in a box.
Who
and-
won?
I forgot about that.
Who won? If Wally got
As far as
stuck,
I'm
who
concerned, Wally.
Wally won.
I don't know.
Guy from Germany won it.
doesn't
Guy from
matter who
Germany
won it.
the
Yeah.
best butt.
Got it.
But you talk about practice. I was just my curiosity when it was come over here. It wasn't 10 minutes before, and I haven't looked at this folder for probably 10 years, and it's in Craig's office at the shop. And I went and dug it, and it's just my curling records, and I looked, and between 74 and 84, I
Yeah.
threw 23,000 curling stones, practice stones.
23,000
practice stones.
practice stones?
And I
Holy
curled,
moly.
and I wrote it down. I curled 1,145 games in that period from 74 to 84.
Holy
I
smokes.
mean, I threw a lot of stones before that, and I threw a lot of stones after that. But in
Wow.
that's the period basically where we were playing competitive.
And that's why your knees don't work
That's
anymore.
right. And he was right, though. I mean, there was days when I worked at American Family, and I would actually get up early and go down to the curling club and try and throw like 24 quick stones. And then I'd be at work at 8 o'clock. At noon hour, I don't know how naive they were, because I disappeared at noon hour every day for like 15 years.
Yeah.
And over my 30-minute noon hour that took me about an hour and 10 minutes, I threw practice stones. I'd come back to my desk,
Yep.
and I could actually feel my knee throbbing underneath my knee.
Oh, man.
And I would take a couple of Advil,
Yeah.
and at 4 o'clock when I was dismissed, if
Yeah.
I didn't have a game that I was scheduled that night, I might
Yeah.
go back to the
You
curling
might go
club
back
and throw
to-
another 16. And I
Jeez.
just did that every day. And I was so hyped on curling at that time. At the end of the year, when they'd shut off the ice,
Yeah.
so for about 2 or 3 days, if the weather was cold enough, you'd still have some ice. But
Sure.
it slowly, gradually, I can remember actually going down there when there was a layer of water on the ice,
Yeah,
and just do
and
practice
just-
slides, just because I felt every day I threw a practice slide, I was that much closer and stronger for the next
Jeez.
year.
Dang. Man, you need some help.
You needed help.
He needed help.
Doesn't
Not
need it anymore,
Not
but-
anymore. Not anymore. You needed help back in the day. So you guys both eventually stepped back from curling, quit curling, whatever, and you both had kids that were pretty successful. Do you want to talk about your kids and their success?
Well, we had
You-
a lot of time together. I mean, I think even after we done curling, because of Debbie and Erica played together for
Yeah.
so many years, that I think Wally's going to say the same thing, but we probably got more satisfaction myself out of watching Craig and Erica at national championships and worlds. That meant more to me than the things I accomplished.
Any of your
And I
successes.
know
Yeah,
Wally will tell you the same thing.
Yeah, yeah. Debbie and Erica and their players went through 4 years of high school as juniors together, and they won the national championship all 4 years in a row.
Got it. For those that don't know, Wally's daughter is Debbie. Know her now as Debbie McCormick. She was Debbie Henry back in the day.
Back then, yeah.
Back then.
2003 world champion.
Yep. Debbie won the 2003 World Championship. Erica ever go to Worlds?
She went
Oh,
to
yeah.
world.
She
Yep.
went- okay.
So I think she was on teams that had two silvers at the ladies' worlds, and I think
Maybe
she
even
won
3.
And then she had 3 silver medals at the junior worlds too. Women's.
Okay.
So never
Yeah.
made it that final game.
Got it.
But she had 6 silver
It's
medals.
okay. No shame in that.
Yeah, she played a lot of women's worlds though.
Yeah.
I don't know, at least 7 or 8.
Erica did?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think she
Okay.
played 8. I think she played 8 women's worlds, and she played 7 junior worlds, I think.
How many do you think Debbie went to?
I don't know exactly.
Probably at least that many. Maybe
bunch.
Probably at
maybe
least
a few
that many,
more.
yeah. But Erica also went to 2 Olympics, Debbie went to 4 Olympics with her team. So yeah, we're pretty proud of what the kids did. And Krager had a good streak going there for a while too.
No, I was mostly just good looking.
Still are, Craig.
Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, bud. I was fishing for that one, and you bit.
My son Donnie's always been involved with curling. Didn't really get on a competitive team for very long, and when he was on a competitive team, they didn't do very well. But he's always been very involved with curling and still is.
Your grandkids are curling now too.
Well, Donnie and I won Club Nationals in '09.
That's true. You're not as handsome as Craig. Sorry.
Whatever.
I've got a story about that. That Nationals I think was in Utica.
It was.
Yeah, and I was coaching that team for the last couple or 3 or 4 games.
I think once we got in the once you got in the playoffs, you came out.
Yeah. Once they were in the playoffs, I came out to watch, and they talked me into coaching a little bit. And that year they won the club championship. But I remember the final game.
Jeff Wright
was playing against Jeff Wright. That's right. And Joel was playing second, and halftime came along, and I had noticed one of Joel's rocks was always light. And it was always the same rock. So on the 5-minute break, I said, Joel, you got a bad rock. You got a rock that's really, really slow. You throw this rock, you got to put a little bit more speed on it. And that helped the game too, I believe. Remember that?
I do. Actually, it was a semifinal game.
Semifinal.
And you came out at a timeout.
Timeout it was, yeah.
Mike called the timeout. You walked to the house and told Mike, play the draw. And just or told him something quick and just walked past him to me. And he said, you told me, get rid of that second rock. You're terrible. So I gave it to gave it to Donnie. And that helped out a lot.
Who else was on that team?
For Boney skipped. Brian Coop was third. I played 2, and then Donnie played lead.
And you guys won?
We did.
I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was just club nationals. It's not like it was.
No, it's
nationals.
not just
Well,
anything.
the funny thing was,
It's just a
Yeah.
miracle that team won anything. No, I'm just kidding, Joel.
the
They
funny,
won because they kicked me off. I was on that team the year before.
Now we get
Okay.
it.
And they brought in a ringer of a coach.
Yeah, that too.
the funny thing was, when we got to the finals, Jeff Wright picked those rocks to play with that had the dead number 4 rock. So
So you knew
so we knew
something was going to happen.
something's gonna happen. So then I think it was think that was Russ that played those, and one of the Scott tours he came up and after that, and I told him hey, back in '09 your second rock was a big turd.
Russ Armstrong?
Yeah.
Nice.
You guys will bring that
Brown.
up with Russ next time.
Yeah.
Russ
Russ Brown?
Brown.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Russ Brown.
I think it was Brown.
Was pretty good.
Well, I probably owe a lot of my curling career to my the assistant basketball coach of the junior varsity team in high school.
Okay.
I was probably the worst basketball player in the history of the Electric.
All right.
I never got in a game. And all
You're
my
not a very tall man.
and all my
Basketball doesn't seem to be your sport, but
and my best buddies, they would set up in the student section, and we'd be playing a game, and this is just the freshman team and the junior varsity, and we'd be ahead about 60-20. There'd be about 20 seconds to go in the game, and my cronies would stand up. We want Brownie. We want Brownie. And oh my God, I'm embarrassed. I'm the only guy that hasn't been in the game, and the coach would look down,
You're
way
up.
down.
You're up by 40
You'd
and
have
he
to use
still
his
doesn't wanna put you
binoculars to
in.
see me at the end of the bench. Like, oh my God, there's one kid I never put in. So he'd call a timeout and he'd put me in for the last 20 seconds. Sure enough, they'd pass me the ball and I'd take 2 dribbles and they'd blow the whistle. Double dribble, number 22. These guys would stand up. Brownie. But I'd go to practice every day. In a little school, you played every sport. You know? So I went
of
out
course.
for basketball, and I got to be a pretty good horse shooter because that's all I ever did. While everybody else was scrimmaging, I could shoot a horse.
You could shoot horse. Okay, got it.
But
Yeah.
but this one week I was playing.
Okay, hold on. Did you shoot free throws, underhand or overhand?
No, I was overhand. It wasn't
Overhand,
quite.
okay. That, underhand wasn't uncommon back in the day, was it?
Nah, not very many people did.
Not very many
Rick
people.
Barry's the only
Rick-
guy that made underhand
Okay,
free throw
all right,
spot
all
for
right,
an
all
NBA.
right. Okay.
So
sorry.
anyhow, I have 1 week where I was practicing pretty good. I think I actually might have made a basket during the scrim. I'm not
Whoa.
sure. Maybe I was just close.
Quit
you know,
bragging.
But so I had a pretty good week, and it wasn't bad. And that night I'm at home though, and because I did virtually live 3 steps from the front door of the curling club in my backyard, I would get called a sub almost every night because
Sure.
somebody would show up. So one night there's 2 teams of teachers that are playing against each other. One of the teams is 4 coaches, and it was assistant basketball coach, I think the head basketball coach, and then probably the football coach or somebody else.
Sure.
And then they were playing against 4 of just regular teachers, and one of them happened to be the ag teacher, and he was probably the most senior person in the school. He'd been teaching ag for 40 years. He was the beloved of the whole community. I mean, he was the most popular guy in Gilzo.
Okay.
And one of his guys couldn't show up. Like, it's 2 minutes to 8, and he says, "We need a sub really quick." And I tell you, it was 2 minutes to 8, and by 8 o'clock, I'm in the hack throwing the first stone. That's how long it took me to get to the club. We play a whole game.
How did they get? Did they call your house?
Yeah,
Or-
they just
oh,
call the
just
house.
the
and,
house.
Yeah. And
Hey, we need sub.
They
You
had-
could have just
they had-
walked next door and
Yeah,
knocked on the
yeah, they
door.
could have
too,
knocked
I
on the
suppose.
door.
Also,
Yeah.
they did have phones then, Mike, too. So they did have phones.
Hey, I don't know.
So anyhow, I play the game. Game gets over, and good old ag teacher, he makes a couple nice shots, and we whip the teachers and the coach. You know, but then I go home, and the next day I'm in study hall. It's at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm in study hall. And over the loudspeaker, back there was a big intercom system, and it comes on. "Steve Brown, will you please report to Coach Rarup's office?" Never been called to coach's
Yeah.
office.
All right.
I think, played last night. I played good. Maybe he thinks, my talent could rub off into the basketball. I had a good week in practice. I bet maybe he's going to tell me I got some playing time. So I go down to his office, and he says, "Close the door, Steve." And he says, "Sit down." I sit down, and he's at this desk that's about a foot higher than where my chair is, and he's looking down at me, and he says, "Steve, where were you last night?" I'm kind of like, "What do you mean, where was I?" He says, "I curled." I says, "In fact, we played against you." He says, "I know you played against us." And he says, "Well, what time did you get home last night, Steve?" I says, "We played at 8 o'clock. I suppose I got home about 10 o'clock. And he says, "This is Friday, isn't it? Game day." And he says, "What was last night?" Well, it was Thursday. And he says, "Well, what's our curfew on Thursdays, the night before a game?" I says, "It's 9:30. And he looks at me and he says, "So you were out after curfew last night, weren't you?" I says, "Well, not really." And he says, "Well, you were if you didn't get home till 10 o'clock. I says, "I know, but I live next door, and I subbed with J.O. Beadle, and I played against you with 8 teachers, or there's 7 teachers and me on the ice." He says, "It don't make any difference. You're out after curfew. You're kicked off the basketball team." I couldn't believe it.
Not just not played the next day, but like
Permanently.
kicked off.
Kicked off. Well, inside, I'm happy. I don't have to play basketball again. I don't have to listen to my buddies in the stands calling me for going to game when we're ahead by 30 points and get. So anyhow, I go home that night, and it's that time I should be going to the gym, get ready, to get my uniform on. And my dad says, "You got to get going. You got to be up to the gym in about 10 minutes." I says, "I'm not going to the game. We got to go to the game." I says, "Dad, I got kicked off." And my dad, like, "Holy Christ, what are you talking about? You got kicked off." I told him the story. And, oh, my God, my dad is mad. And so I don't know anything else. And the weekend goes by.
You didn't go to the game.
I went to the game and sat in the stands.
You just sat in the stands. Okay, but you did not
No, I
go and
didn't.
dress.
No,
and- yeah,
no.
nothing. Okay.
But my dad, so unbeknown, my dad, he calls us J.O. Beadle, the ag teacher, and he explains this to him. And I still don't know, this conversation's been going on. And following Monday, 1 o'clock, I'm in homeroom again,
Yeah,
study
yeah,
hall.
Okay.
"Steve Brown, report to the superintendent's office.
Whoa! Look out!
Get thrown out of school.
I bet they're putting a noose in the gym and they're going to hang me. The superintendent.
Got to go to the Super Nintendo's office.
So I go to the superintendent. And I walk through the door, and there's a superintendent, the principal, my dad, and the ag teacher.
Okay.
And they had just had a conversation, and the ag teacher had went into the superintendent, the principal, and he basically sat him down in a chair. He basically made those guys, you guys, son of a bitches, you sit down.
Oh.
He says, I've been in this school system for 40 years, and what happened to kick this kid off a basketball team is the most asinine thing I've ever seen in the school district. And if he's not back on the team, I'm walking out the front door, and you will never see me in this high school again. So they says, okay, you're back on. So they tell me, Steve, we got good news, you're back on. I think I started crying. Oh, God, no. Please, don't put me back on. So now I'm back in the damn team. I got to go home. I finally worked out with my dad, and I went in the next day, and I resigned from the basketball team. But from that day on, they started a curling program. So I started curling.
There you go.
And that's how I got into curling so much.
There you go.
So
That's that.
thanks to the basketball coach.
Thanks to the basketball coach. You.
What a dick. Did you get to like at least beat him the next several years, like in school? Like, did you get to play against him a bunch and beat him every
I don't know.
time?
I just
or-
hated the guy so bad. It just I don't know.
I know those guys that you just
Man.
hate.
starting at point guard, number 22.
Number one in your heart.
Number 1 in your hearts. Number 22 in the program. Nice.
Well, did you play any other sports growing up?
Yeah, football and baseball in the summertime.
Okay.
Not very good at either one. When I think I was still like 9th grade or maybe 8th grade. We played on a community team. It wasn't really a high school team or a school team. It was just a team that we would play against other communities. And tell you how good I was at baseball. When I got up to the plate with my bat, I'd get 3 balls, ball 1, ball 2, ball 3. I had 3 balls on me, and the other players would say, "Okay, take this one, Wally. Take this one." So whatever it was, I was going to swing at it. so that's how good a baseball player I was.
What position were you in football?
I was actually I played center most of the time.
Okay.
And then I played tackle too.
Center and tackle. All right. Defensive tackle.
Or
Or did you play both sides or just offensive
We
tackle?
played both sides.
Yeah.
I forget what I was on defense. I was probably
Probably
on
lineman.
the line. Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Nice. And you played that just through high school.
High school. Yeah.
Right on.
I think only for a couple of years. But mostly it was.
Hold on. You went to high school in Canada?
Yeah.
Canadian rules or?
Yeah, it was Canadian rules for sure.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay, the weird end zones and all of it.
Three downs.
Three
lot
downs.
of passes. Yeah.
Man.
And your team was probably named the Rough Riders. I'm sure.
There was a few teams named the Rough Riders. No, we got named by the high school. The high school.
What was your high school mascot?
I don't think we had a mascot.
You didn't have a mascot?
I don't think we had any cheerleaders either.
What was the team name?
Well,
McGregor.
Oh, you're just McGregor.
Yeah.
You weren't the
Just like
McGregor,
McGregor.
the fighting
No,
McGregors. or
McGregor
anything
Falcons.
Not that I can
or-
remember.
Or
No.
or the Wheat Shockers or something.
And
Farming community?
Yeah, farming community.
Yeah.
We played league curling with a bunch of the other communities around the area too, in the wintertime.
On their one-sheet clubs.
A lot of them were.
That's awesome.
So that's where we spent it. At that time in high school, I was able to drive, so I could take the whole team to a Bonspiel or to a league game,
Sure.
20 miles away.
There you go. Boom. Man, what a time to be alive. What's the GET mascot?
We were the Redmen.
The Redmen.
We were one of the teams that had to change the name.
Nice. All right.
So,
Yeah, back in 1990.
What is it now?
Yeah, do we know what it is now?
Red Hawks.
Red Hawks.
The Red
Change.
Hawks.
Red-
Was it still Gail Ettrick Trempolo?
It was Gail Ettrick when I was
Just
there.
Gail
and,
Ettrick.
and then after that, Trumple joined about 3 or 4 years later.
Okay.
So
All right.
we had a really good football team, though. We this was before they had the different classes.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had 2 divisions. They had the Big 16 and the Little 16.
Yeah.
And we were ranked number 1 in the Little 16 in the state of Wisconsin.
Whoa.
And it wasn't because of me.
Did you play football?
I was a
Oh,
running
yeah.
back.
You're a running back?
I was a
All right.
halfback.
Okay.
But so we had probably one of the best running backs in the state, and they'd give him the ball.
Not you.
Yeah, no.
Got it.
He'd
Yours.
run. He'd break it for 30 yards.
Yeah.
They'd call us play again, and he'd get 25. Then he'd go another 30, and then he'd be out of win. So then they'd call me for one play. I'd get 4 yards.
4 yards are pretty good. I mean,
Then
come
they'd go
on.
back to him until he got
Yeah.
tired again.
Got it.
Thank God he ran so far that every once in a while he got tired.
Every
and
once in a while,
I'd
he got
get to run
tired,
the
and then
ball.
you get to go on.
But
Got
we
it.
were ranked number 1, and we tied a game. I didn't start until my senior year, but my freshman year we tied a game, and we never lost a game. So we had 1 tie in the 4 years of high school, and all the rest were victories. And so
Wow. That's pretty good.
Hard not to be number 1 if you never lost a game.
that's right.
Do we? I know the normal routine of questions maybe isn't going to apply tonight, but do we have some of those questions?
so
we didn't-
or-
Yeah, we'll ask.
We didn't give them the questions ahead of time.
We didn't
But
give them
Well,
questions
we-
ahead
we
of
don't-
time, but the ones,
yeah,
the
let's
ones
do
that we,
some of them.
the ones that we have, we'll do the good ones. One of the best ones that we have, I think Garrett came up with this one way back in the day. So, not including money or championships, what is the best thing that you have, or the strangest thing that you have ever won at a Bonspiel? Now, I know the story. Both of you could tell that you won a bull at Grindelwald. Now, one or both of you can tell that story, but you should also think of something other than a live cow that you've won. If you ever go to Steve's Curling in Madison, Wisconsin, go in the showroom, look up at the wall. There's a picture of the 2 of them, and
and the bull.
and Richard and George
George,
with
yeah.
the bull. So it's great. It's a great picture.
Steve wanted to bring him home.
Steve wanted to bring him home.
Yeah, and Stevie fell in love with that little bull. He says, do you think they sell a seat for that guy?
So, what happened to the bull? What?
The farmer, it's a neutral agreement with a
Okay.
with a club and with the association. So there is a couple of Swiss teams that have actually kept it that were farmers,
Okay.
but it's a written agreement that they present it. So they actually bring it out on the ice. They roll out this long red carpet.
Mm-hmm.
They march this thing right out on the ice, and it is cuter than hell. And you get the pose for all these pictures, and everybody go crazy. I mean, it was by far and away. There's nothing even close to that.
Is it a
we ever
young bull
won.
or like is it a
Yeah, it's a
full
young
size-
one.
Okay.
No, it's a young one.
How many people do you think were in the? It was in an arena, wasn't
Yeah.
it?
So
How many people do you think were in the arena that day?
12,000.
12, baby.
12. Okay.
There were some people watching.
All the locals stick
Locals,
around and
yeah.
watch that.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
see what's going on.
All right. So other than the bull, what do you think?
Well, I can start.
Well, you
start
don't
this
take the
off.
bull, but then you take the cash. Like it's a
Take the
oh, yeah.
cash
take the
or
bull
the
or
bull.
the cash.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But there were some teams that would keep it because then
They would
they
keep
were
it, they would use
farmers.
the
They'd
bull
take it home and
Yeah.
grow it until it was full size, and then
Butcher it.
butcher it for their restaurants or
Nice.
sell it at auction or
Sure.
whatever.
Cool.
When I was new to curling, and living in this farming community at the Rosendale Bonspiel, my family decided to take a family team,
Okay.
and that consisted of the skip, my father, the third, my mother.
Mhm.
I was older than my brother, so I played second and he played lead.
Okay.
We went through and we won that thing, and back then there was no cash Bonspiels or anything. They're just local fun
Yeah.
things.
Yeah.
We won 4 toasters.
Four
Four toasters
Four toasters.
All right.
All right. Is your
for one house. Nice.
Is your brother still curl?
No, he curled a little bit through high school, but when he got out of college, he didn't curl anymore.
Got it. Okay. So you still live in Canada?
He still lives in Canada, London, Ontario.
All right. There you go. Boom.
So I got a little
Shout out to Wally's brother.
little Craig story here. When we played the first family bonds field we played in, the old Madison Curling Club, and how old are you? Maybe
7 or 8.
are you that young?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're playing, and we're in the first event finals, and we're like 3 ahead coming home, and we hit and roll out, and we hit and roll out because we're just trying to eliminate their stones.
Yep.
But he don't know how to read the old complicated scoreboards. He has no idea, and he thinks we're behind.
I don't know that we're behind. If we're behind, but I just don't. I know that the last shot of the end, we didn't score.
Yeah, it hits and rolls out, and I think they already hit, like we're 3 ahead, and they got a counter, but we hit and roll out,
Yeah.
and so we win, and we won the first event, and happy and excited. They got the 2 kids, and the first time they win a little Bonspiel, they're gonna get a little pin, and he's just kind of moping around, and we can't figure out what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think Diane come up to you and says, "What's the matter, Craig?" He says, "Well, why can't we stay in the house? We couldn't, we lost." She said, "What do you mean you lost?" He said, "Well, we never got a point. They got the point in the last end." She tried to explain to him that
Yeah. That you were winning by
Yeah,
more than 1 point.
he didn't know.
I had no idea. We won it. We won a trophy. I still have that trophy. It's in the shop,
Wow.
right next to
Breaks to the bull.
Right next to
right next to the bull.
Well, it's near the bull picture, but it is displayed right next to my national championship bowls in the same display case.
All right.
But yeah, I was convinced that we lost the game because I didn't know how to read the scoreboard,
Yeah.
and
Well,
I
you
think
won a little trophy, and it lives today.
yep,
That's
still-
awesome.
Still
that
there.
was the best. That was the best thing you won. That's great.
Oh, what's the best thing you won that wasn't
what's
a bowl?
the best thing that you won that
What's the
wasn't?
best weirdest
Or
prize that
weirdest-
you ever
You
won
had to
that
have
wasn't
won some weird
wasn't a
prizes.
cash or a
Okay.
championship?
I won a suitcase at Sault Ste. Marie.
Well, there you
It was
go.
a set
There
of
you go.
suitcases. It was you got a big one, and a little one fit in that, and then a smaller one fit in that.
Who did we just have on that won a suitcase, but it was a used suitcase?
Oh, you
Smitty.
That was
Smitty, yeah,
really?
Smitty won.
Smitty won a used suitcase. It had like toothpaste and it had like toiletries in it.
it still had a used toiletry bag in it.
Yeah.
That was 2 episodes ago. You can go find it. It's called slightly used toothbrushes.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Nice. Okay, this is a fun one. You're going to a Bonspiel. You can go wherever you want, and you can take whoever you want. You can take a 5-person team if you so desire. Where are you going, and who are you taking with you?
Doesn't have to be a curler.
Doesn't have to be a curler. It can
you
be
can take anybody in the world.
celebrities. It can be
Living, dead, doesn't matter.
living, dead. Yeah, it doesn't matter.
It can also be in a different era if
Yeah,
you want. Like
sure.
it doesn't
Sure,
have to be 2023 or 24.
You
It can
do
be
what you can. You
the
can,
1980 version of
You can do
such
whatever
and
you
such a
want.
spiel.
You can be like, I want to go to the Briar, but I want to take 1986 Wally, and I want to take. Yeah. So where are you going, and who are you taking?
I've did enough curling, so I'm taking Taylor Swift, Julia Roberts, and Sharon Bula.
And Sharon who?
What's her last name? Sharon.
Sharon Stone?
No.
No. Sharon.
She played in.
She was
just on
curler?
TV. Yeah, no.
No.
None of them are curlers.
None of them are
You think
curlers.
Taylor curled?
No. You're the third person to take Taylor Swift?
No, I'd
Somebody
probably.
else is taking Taylor Swift to
If I could,
Bonspiel
if I
on our
could
show.
put up a team, I would like to. Igor Ramsfeld was kind of a
Okay.
idol.
All right.
I really enjoyed him.
All right.
So that would definitely be one of them.
Okay.
I probably got to take my Erica's husband, Ian.
Ian?
Played in,
Okay.
Guy won 3 world championships for crying out loud.
Okay.
Playing
Yeah.
with
So
3 different
apparently you want to
skips.
win the curling. Yeah.
And
okay.
he beats me in cards all the time, but I still got to play with him. I got to
right,
pretend.
all right.
I throw those games of cards just to
Sure.
keep him and Erica.
Sure.
in.
Just
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
Family unity that's taking one for the team.
And because Wally's here, I'm going to stick with Wally. I'm
All
taking
right,
Wa-
all
because
right.
he's going to bring wine. I know that.
Hey, there you go.
And George would have to come along as
So 5-person
yeah,
team.
I'd have to take
Wally,
George.
George,
yeah,
Io Ramsfeld, and Ian Brown Tetley.
Ian Tetley, yeah.
But you got to figure out what glass goes
Yep,
with
and where?
what-
yeah, and where?
World wine.
Where would you want to go? Where would you want to go,
Where do
Kurt?
I want to go? Centerville.
Centerville.
Centerville?
The Centerville men's. You could get that team together. For
Centerville,
Centerville men's.
Centerville Club
You should.
now or
The old Quonset hut.
Quonset
Yeah,
hut.
yeah.
Okay. All right. Wally, how about you? Where are you going? Who you taking?
Well, there's so many places I wouldn't mind going to. Bonspiel again, like Grindelwald would be one of them. Even Bern. There's a lot of European places I'd like
Sure.
to go again, but getting more local. I think I always enjoyed. For one Bonspiel I always enjoyed was at St. Paul. The St. Paul Cash Spiel.
Okay.
Yeah.
Back then it was held on Thanksgiving weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So we'd have Thanksgiving on Thursday, and then Friday we're off to play curling in St. Paul. And
Okay.
Snowed every year.
It
didn't
snowed
every year.
always snow. Yeah, on the way up you're gonna get a snowstorm. If not, it'll snow while you're there. We got snowed into the club a few times.
We did.
Had to shovel and push our ways out. But yeah, a few people that I always enjoyed playing with. One was Jim Gemmel. He wasn't in the club for very long, and he was originally from North Dakota.
Mm-hmm.
But he was a great guy and a real good curler too.
No relationship to Dean, is he?
No.
Okay.
No.
Got
And
Jim Gemmel.
I don't know if so let's see who would he put on the team. I know I'd take Steve, of course, because
he took you and you're doing the right thing. Okay, got it. All right. Lame. Yeah.
Steve for a while had a reputation of being fearless on the ice.
Okay. Love it.
And the reason for that is that we'd get behind every once in a while, and we'd really be playing for points. And if we were had to steal,
Mm-hmm.
you wouldn't be throwing any takeouts. You'd be using guards and stuff for stealing. And we won a lot of curling games because of that. I've got many players that I'd like to take for fourth. I don't know. I'd like to take my daughter on that team.
She's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I could have my son as a fifth.
Sure.
He'd
Why not?
probably jump in as a coach too.
Sure, whatever. You want one more just because you have a lot of people?
No, that's too many people
No, that's
already.
pretty good. All right.
No more room in the car.
Who's going to bring the wine?
Yeah. Is there anywhere you guys would have liked to have curled that you didn't curl? I mean, I'm not sure. Was there any curling in Japan when you guys curled?
Not really. I don't think they were that involved with curling back then.
Okay.
I got over
Okay.
to Japan a few times, but once it was Craig's team.
Sure.
And
Did you have a curl there, or did you just go to coach
I did
or
not. Just coach. I
or
did not curl
spectate?
there. No.
Got it.
Curl,
Or
yeah.
your kid got to play in the Red Square. I mean that
That
would
was-
have been pretty.
That was something.
Pretty
I think
cool
of any
place to
place
curl.
our family curled, that's probably the most unique. And
Yeah.
I mean, it's just hard to comprehend that anybody ever curled in the Red Square, and
Right.
especially the state of the world now.
Yeah.
And they took care of you over there.
Yeah.
They're very, very gracious. I was
In
over
Russia?
No, I'm talking. You're still talking about Japan.
Oh,
Japan.
sure.
No, yeah.
I was over there coaching with Debbie at one tournament,
Mm-hmm.
and they just the committee, the townspeople, they just took care of you and made sure you got where you wanted to go and got what you wanted to pick up, and it was really nice.
Yeah.
All right, we're going a little long here. So
Okay, sorry. All right.
one last question. You guys have both coached. What's some piece of advice you would give to curlers coming up in the game now?
You got to have, it's just, to me, it's all about passion. If you don't, you got to have a tremendous passion and want to do it. You absolutely have to love what you're doing. If somebody's got you out there, if it's your parent or somebody, and yeah, you might be pretty good, but if you don't have a burning passion and a focus to go with it, you're never going to be a true world champion. You might win some games, you might win some spiels, but but passion has to come from within. And in my coaching, I've tried to help build that, foster it, but it's a hard thing. I mean, it really has to come from within. And that's one of the things I love playing with Wally, and I love playing with George and Paul and Richard. Everybody, I think we all had we love the game. I mean, we live to play the next game. And I think that's why we said, I think there was a lot of curlers. I know there was a lot of skips that were better than I were.
Sure.
But I don't think any of them dedicated to the game as much as I did. And I think that's why we won a lot of games.
Sure.
Yeah, dedication is one of the top things that new curler coming up has to have. They have to be dedicated enough and love the game enough that they can get out there and practice. And practice is going to be paramount for them to do well also. And also paying attention to the coach. Now curling is in a period where coaches are everywhere, and good coaches, and if you listen to the coach and do what he says, and pay attention to what you're doing and learn from your mistakes, they should do well.
Sure. Awesome. Well, dudes, thank you. We probably could go for another hour and a half, but we're already
At least.
way long. Maybe we'll have you again, but thank you very much.
And Wally's got to wear that sweater again. 'cause
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
awesome.
In case you're
It's
not
fantastic.
watching, in case you're just listening, Wally
Wally's-
walked in with the 1991 World Championship jacket and took it off to unveil the 1986 National Championship sweater.
Stand up, and like give
Display
people
that.
give
Yeah.
the stand up
That is
so
awesome.
everybody get a look
Oh,
at
it
that
still
sweater.
fits and everything.
Man,
It looks
fantastic.
good.
got the patches. It's still in great shape.
as good
That
as
is
the day
such
you
a
got
great
it.
sweater.
It did shrink while it was in storage.
In
Yeah.
storage?
Oh, of course it did. Of course it did. That happens. Yeah, that's the strangest thing. Mine all did that. All of my clothes did that in COVID. It's weird. I don't know how that happened. All right.
Enjoy doing this.
Well, thank you.
It's our pleasure.
You probably don't have any sponsors that you want to mention, so we don't have to do that part of the show.
Well, I would like to, Craig at Steve's Curling Supplies. Thank you very much,
Steve's
Craig.
Curling Supplies. Yeah, that's your sponsor. They keep you out of trouble.
Keeps them on the golf course all summer.
Keep you on the golf course all summer and out of trouble in the winter. So congratulations. All right, thanks guys.
Thanks, guys. That was
Appreciate
fun.
it. Yeah,
Yeah, great time.
Thanks,
good
guys.
curling. All right, that's it. Clap. Everybody clap. Clap your hands. Clap. 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 Clap your hands. No.
Everybody
Okay.
clap your hands.
We should maybe if I sing that too good, we're gonna get copyright infringement or something. Probably not. Anyway, season 4, episode 7, I think, in the books. 6. Who knows? I never learned how to count or read. So, fun fact. Anyway, that's it. Big thanks to our sponsors as always. Modus Financial, moduscc.com. Check them out. Endgamecurling.com. Check them out. If you need a new broom, if Santa didn't bring you one and put it under the tree, get yourself a new broom and do that. We had end cards floating around here somewhere that normally flash at the camera.
Somebody asked me for those the other day at the shop.
Oh, maybe you should have some at the shop.
Maybe I should, but
Yeah.
I told him to talk to Joel.
All right, get some at the shop.
Like he was ready to buy.
Sweet. Curling ends. We did a tutorial at some point, I think. If you don't know, email the show and ask for the rules. We'll send them to you. Otherwise, email the show, curlingnation@curlingnetwork.com, and let us know who you want us to get on the show, or what you think about the show, or, I don't know, personal questions for us. Color car do you drive? I don't know. Who knows? Fun
Blue.
stuff like that. Blue? I would drive black. You?
Taupe.
Taupe?
No, it's silver.
You're ridiculous.
What is it? What even is taupe?
I
don't
guarantee.
know.
I guarantee you could look at a list at a
I
wall of colors and you could.
I could look at a swatch and I
couldn't
could not
point
pick
to
out
taupe. Yeah, you're an idiot.
I would say it's somewhere off beige.
I don't think you're too far off.
Really? I thought it was more of like a pinkish magenta-ish.
I have no idea.
Thing.
Nobody's right. Anyway, that's it. Mike,
Craig.
Curling Nation, we're out. Good curling, everybody.